I'm gonna share first. I'm gonna start my video. Hello, it's Wednesday, and we all know what that is. Really? In the middle of my life. Well, I guess this is real life, y'all. So this is what you get when you live in a global pandemic. So we'll start over. It's Wednesday, and it is time for Ladies and Lunch. This is our virtual networking hour. And I am your host, Cha Jones. Normally, I try to have someone else present in their expertise, but this week we don't have anyone. So we are going to have me, and that is quite fine. But I am glad that we are going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's stepping outside of your comfort zone. So we have a presentation from me, your host. It is saying yes when something's outside of your wheelhouse. Right now, we're living in very different times, and some people are having to adjust. Well, everybody's pretty much having something that they have to adjust to. But a lot of times, people are adjusting to things that is just so abnormal for them. And I just want to talk about that because we all need support, and we need to know how to step out of our comfort zones and do something different, especially those who have lost jobs, and those who have had transitioned from going into work to now working remotely. And now that we're going into different phases of our, I guess, coming out, we have to look at what's going to be the new normal and how do we adjust to that. And so just like we adjusted to everything shutting down and us going inside, now we have to come out and immerse in our communities, and it's going to be different. So let's jump in and talk about it. And I am going to post this on YouTube, and I'll give you all the information later. So I am going to share my screen, and looks something like this. All right. So saying yes when it's outside of your wheelhouse. Um, we hear that phrase, stepping outside of your wheelhouse, not often, but sometimes when someone is telling us to step outside of our comfort zones, and primarily when it comes to work. So if you're working in an environment and it's not something that you normally do, somebody asks that you step outside your wheelhouse, meaning that you are stepping into something that's the unknown. So maybe you're in marketing and they're asking you to be a project manager. They kind of go hand in hand, but maybe that's not your entire expertise. So there's some things that you may not be familiar with. Um, Something that would be more relative would probably be if you are a creative person and you're behind the scenes and you do the design, and then they ask you to train for the very first time, and this is not something that you do. You don't stand in front of people, you're not comfortable talking to crowds or even to just individuals on things that you do or things that your department does. And so this may be something that you have to adapt to. And it's the same thing with if you're working in an office and then now you have to work remotely. It sounds good in theory for some people, and then some people it's just not a good fit. So they have to make an adjustment. So let's just talk about some of those things today. So I'm going to cover comfort zones and perfect timing, and then stepping outside your wheelhouse, what that really means and how you can do that, and then some new possibilities, things that maybe we haven't thought about, and how we get started. So the truth is that our finest moments are most likely to occur when we are feeling deeply uncomfortable, unhappy, or unfulfilled. For it is only in such moments, propelled by our discomfort, that we are likely to step out of our ruts and start searching for different ways or truer answers. And I love this quote by M. Scott Peck, because this is truth. Like, it's easy to be in your comfort zone. It's easy to do what's familiar to you and what's normal. And we had to create normalcy. But to go outside of that and to step out of that and to start doing something that is completely different is uncomfortable because it's not what you're normally doing. And so you stretch yourself. And sometimes that can be very difficult for people. It can create anxiety because it's very easy to have a routine. It's very easy to wake up and do the same thing every day because I don't have to think about it. And most people are on autopilot. It means that they wake up, they have their breakfast at a certain time, they take a shower at a certain time, they get ready, they grab their keys from the same spot, and they keep moving. And things just happen and it falls into place. However, that's not where growth happens. And so we have to get out of our comfort zones. We have to become familiar with new and different things. And sometimes that's not easy. It's really about creating a new normal. And I think I talked about that several times throughout these series, but that's the time that we're in. And unfortunately, there is no perfect time to learn. There's no perfect time to step out of your comfort zone. You have to create that time. So I try to use this quote. I used to think timing was everything. I have since learned that now is the time for everything. And that is so true. This is the moment that you have been given. You can't live in yesterday, that's gone. You can't live in tomorrow because it hasn't yet existed. You only have now, and you have to seize every second of this moment for you to actually be purposeful. So often people try to, procrastinate and like, you know what, I can get to that tomorrow. Tomorrow not promised to you. So your perfect time is now. Whatever you're thinking about doing now is the time to do it. So it's not, oh, I'll do it in 2 weeks or I'll do it next month. Because we don't know. Like literally a couple months ago, we were on autopilot. Had our little lives. We had vacations scheduled. We had graduation scheduled. Kids were in school. Everything was working, right? As we knew it. But then this pandemic hit. And so we had to adjust to a new normal. We had to take kids out of school and then homeschool them. And then we were, juggling, working from home, taking care of kids, leaving jobs that no longer existed. Everything that we were used to no longer existed as we knew it. And so again, timing is of the essence. And so some people would not say this was the perfect time, but it was. It was a perfect time to readjust. It was a perfect time to get into a new adjustment of how we were to move forward. And so that's not always easy. A lot of times it creates anxiety, and you have to start treading in unfamiliar territory. So it can be very scary. However, I promise you, there's growth in all of that. If you are challenged by something outside of your wheelhouse, the better route is to let them know that you are hungry to learn. This is really pertaining to if you are working and someone asks you to do something that you are not accustomed to doing. If you are looking for a job right now, so let's say you lost your job because of the pandemic and right now you're searching for a job, and let's say you did marketing and now you're looking at positions and you see a lot of, I don't know, let's say training positions. And you're like, I'm not really comfortable with that. But this is the greatest time to say yes. This is the greatest time to look at things differently and try to adjust to what is. So maybe that's not your level of expertise and you don't feel very comfortable doing it, but this is the greatest time to step out of that comfort zone and say, you know what, I'm going to try something different so that I can move forward, because what was working is not an option right now, because you can't go back to yesterday. You have to move forward. So it's time to learn. And in that, you are going to find that there are new opportunities. You may look at job descriptions and like, okay, I've never done this, I've never done that. But this is a good time for you to say, you know what, I've never done it, but how can I open myself up to that? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So everything is uncomfortable at first. I have I guess he's a 9-month-old now. As of a couple of days ago, he turned 9 months. And I look at him as a couple months ago, when he was about 6, almost 7 months, he started to crawl. And at first I was like, dude, that is not that's not a crawl, because he was kind of scooting, but he was scooting backwards. And I was like, that's not even moving forward. However, it was uncomfortable. He was doing something that was totally different for him. He had never crawled before. So he was in an uncomfortable, unfamiliar space. And so I had to just like give him little things to do until he got comfortable. And at first he would like carry his leg because it was uncomfortable. He had been laying on his back for 6 months. So now he was being pushed and propelled to do something different. And it was very uncomfortable. But eventually he took one step, he took another step, and eventually he was like crawling and he was going forward instead of backwards. And now he stands and walks. And so even in the learning to walk, even though he walks around things right now, he's not totally walking on his own. It's interesting to just watch him take his first steps, because you could tell where a couple weeks ago he was wobbling and he's a little off balance, and now he's a little bit secure in his steps. Same thing with our lives. We have to take our first steps. And at first, it feels like we're fished out of water. Where are our gills? We can't consume all this air. But the more you do it, the better you become at it. Like I said, with time, everything gets easier. Look at this child. He is like baby in the sun. That's not his normal disposition. But, the better you get at something, the easier it gets. And eventually you feel like, I live in this space. Same thing with new opportunities. If you are seeking a job right now, that in and of itself, especially if you've done years at a position and now you have to shift gears and go somewhere different, or you have to do something different, you're totally like out your comfort zone. And it's not easy. You're learning something. You have to learn new people, new culture. And then you're probably not going, unless you're an essential worker, you're not going to be in an office. So getting to know people, learning something new is or can be difficult. And so you just have to make those adjustments and things get better. Eventually, you'll get in the swing of things and all works out. The other thing is, you don't have to be an expert to be effective. Some things you are going to do for just time being. This is just to get to the next level, taking your next step. So you don't have to be the expert in this. What you have to do is move forward. You have to have a plan. You have to get out your comfort zone. You have to be ready for growth and be ready to take your next steps. But expertise takes time. It takes hours and months and years to become an expert in a particular thing. Right now, we're not expecting you to be an expert. We're expecting you to accept the challenge that I have to step into something new and I have to be willing to learn. But you can still be effective at whatever you do, even if that's not your expertise. If you're switching lanes, it's going to be an adjustment period, and you have to accept that. And there are going to be some challenging moments. There are going to be times where your head hurts. There's going to be times where you just feel exhausted because this is something new. And until you get the wings under you to feel comfortable in doing something, it's going to be challenging. However, the effectiveness is the saying yes and the stepping in the row and actually learning something that you totally didn't know how to do. And maybe you knew a little of it, you weren't quite that familiar with it, but you still can have some effectiveness. It does not require you to be an expert at this moment. And I think sometimes we want to step into things and we expect that we know everything about something. And you don't. You're not going to ever know everything. But even experts, they're still learning. And so you have to give yourself permission to step into things and have some reprieve. So the best way to actually transition and get into a new wheelhouse is to have new opportunities and to accept the possibilities that you have some growth that can occur. So the way you can take advantage of being outside of your wheelhouse and then stepping into new territory is to build partnerships. So use this time to help others or ask for assistance, and building relationships with people who do something that you don't normally do. Ask questions. Questions are great because you may not know something, someone else does. And people are way more willing to help you if you ask for their assistance. And this is the way that you build relationships and that you get answers to new things. Tapped talent and skills. So use this time to take classes, read new material. This is also a great time to practice. If you want to be an artist, never have drawn before, doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that you have to acquire some new skills. And so maybe you have to go get a book, or maybe you have to take an online course. Maybe you have to ask someone who is an artist, like, what was the first thing that you did to start drawing? Or what are some steps that you would recommend for someone who is totally out of their comfort zone and this is not a thing that they do? Or, what would be some tips that you may be able to give me? It's all about a learning experience. Fail forward. Use this time to perfect your skills, but don't be afraid to fail. I don't even believe in failure. I think that we all have opportunities that are given to us, and sometimes it does not. Sometimes we don't always have the exact results that we really intended. However, in everything, you have a learning opportunity. So, for instance, if I gave my niece the opportunity to make a cake, I gave her all the instructions and she followed them, and then got down to the last thing and didn't put enough, let's say, water in the cake. That cake is probably not going to give her the exact result. It may not look exactly the way she wants it, but it may still taste good. The thing is that, number one, this is something that she may not have done before. So this is giving her opportunity to step out of her comfort zone and just acquire a new skill. The other thing is that in practice is not perfect the first time. It's made perfect over time. If you continue to do something over and over again, you are going to get better at it. You may not be perfect at it, but you are going to get better. It just means you have to continue to work hard, continue to move forward, and continue to acquire new skills. In that, you have to get started. So again, over the last couple months, we have been in a global pandemic. Nobody expected it, at least the people I know did not expect it. Maybe the higher ups did, but there was no way for us to prepare for this. And so everybody had to shift. Um, and you are in a learning experience, whether you like it or not. Some people are doing the same thing that they used to do in the sense of work, but they're doing it differently. So there's still some growth in that because they had to adapt to maybe working from home where they're accustomed to working in a work environment, um, brick and mortar, going to work, working with actual people, where now they're working virtually and they're not technologically savvy. And so they have to adjust to that. And that can be a major learning curve, especially if you have a whole bunch of different gadgets, have to figure out how to work them. You don't have any technical person that can come and set that up for you. It can be very challenging. However, it's not the end of the world. We are here to learn. And again, over time, you get better. Some of the ways that you can get started would be mentorships. I think a lot of times people really underestimate the power of relationship. And mentorship is a great way for you to build relationships, connect with people who have already been doing what you want to do. Again, like I spoke about an artist and you now want to draw, or now you're being required to have some drawing expertise. The best way to learn something is to find somebody who already does it. And in mentorship, it's not you just expecting the person with the expertise to give you something. This is about building a relationship. This is about connecting with someone who has a level of expertise in something that you want to learn. And this is about you really stepping out and asking questions. A lot of times, the mentorship relationship is on the mentee versus the mentor. The mentor is busy. The mentor is in their groove. This is the person who has the expertise. So you have to be the one willing to step out of your comfort zone, ask the right questions, do enough work that the mentor is like, I see you and let me help you, because people want to help people who want to help themselves. And so sometimes mentorship relationships do not work out because the mentee is expecting way more than has been agreed upon. And sometimes there hasn't been an agreement. So I strongly suggest that when you're building a mentor mentee relationship, that you set a level of expectations. Like, I'm going to contact you on XYZ days. Does that work for your schedule? What is your schedule? And how do you want me to communicate with you? Maybe your mentor is really, really busy. They can meet with you on Zoom on Wednesday at 11 o'clock at night. It's not about what's convenient for you sometimes. It's really about stepping out your comfort zone and going to get what it is that you want. It's not about being real lackadaisical. You're going to have to jump in and really seek certain assistance in a mentor-mentee relationship. So that's important. The other thing is, like we were talking about, taking classes. Taking classes is great because right now, since we are in a global pandemic, there are lots of opportunities out there for you to take classes, and a lot of them are free. You have LinkedIn Learning. That sometimes requires that you have membership. If you are a premium member with LinkedIn, then you also get LinkedIn Learning, which has a plethora of different skill sets and training courses that you can dive really deep into a subject matter. You can dive deep into several subject matters. Also, there's like Udemy, there's all kinds of different courses. There are different coaches that are now giving out free 99 courses. There's some that are going to cost you. And so to invest in yourself is a great time to invest to move forward. All learning does not require that you do it in a formal way, meaning that you sign up for a class, you attend the class, and you learn that way. Some learning, for me, the best learning I've ever done has been self-paced. Again, you have YouTube videos. You can do it the DIY way and do it yourself. Um, you can go to, well, now that we are coming back outside and being able to integrate into communities, there are different like community centers and libraries and things like that that you can go to and learn different things. The other way is just practice. Is continue to do something in repetition will allow you to get better. The last way I think a lot of people underestimate is volunteering. And people are like, I don't have time, or if I don't have a job, how am I volunteer? Well, until you get a job, you have an opportunity to volunteer. When I first wanted to, I opened a PR consultancy many moons ago, and I knew nothing about being a consultant. I knew nothing about PR at all. I knew that I wanted to do the event portion of PR, so I read a lot of books. I reached out, got a mentor, and then I volunteered. And so I contacted a nonprofit organization who did several events. It was actually United Way, and they did a lot of large events throughout the year that I was familiar with. So I volunteered, and I actually acquired another mentor in that process, because the person that I reported to in my volunteership, she was an expert in her field, and she took me under her wing. And so she started to give me advice, and she started connecting me with different people. And eventually I was consulting and doing my own thing. But had I not gone and gave my time, which I was not getting paid for, but it led me to a temporary position, which was paying me. And then it led to a permanent position, which was paying me. And then it led to me actually getting a couple clients, which then paid me. So you can't always look at, well, okay, I need money right now. Sometimes you have to look longevity and say, you know what, long money is strong money. And, you know, I want money eventually, but right now I'm not getting paid anyways. So let me give my time. And when you give and you're of service, so many things start to come to you. And the power of relationship is powerful. So oftentimes that's something we don't think about, because we're sitting in our stuff and we forget that there are other people who are worse off than we are. And this gives you an opportunity. I know that sometimes right now you're not going to be able to volunteer in person, but you can still make phone calls. You can, there's still places that will send you information. You can stuff letters. Maybe they'll send you something to write. So if you have writing skills, you have to look outside the box and start thinking about the things that you're good at, but maybe you're not always using those skills right now. So maybe you write. So maybe you'll write for a column or help someone with their website. And maybe that leads to you doing something totally different than you are normally accustomed to. So this is a great time for change. It's time to stand up and decide, I'm going to do something different. It's not a time to sit back and wait. It's not a time to be like, oh, this is going to be over in a few months. We don't know how long this is going to be over. And even if it's over tomorrow and we go forward, we're not going to go backwards. So we have to look at what's in front of us, and we have to be willing to make improvements, make adjustments, learn, do things differently, and stand in a different place. And as uncomfortable as that may be, the more you do something, I can't stress this enough, the more you do something, the better you get at it. It gets easier over time. And what is uncomfortable today becomes more comfortable tomorrow, and eventually it becomes your sweet spot. But you have to be curious, you have to ask questions, you have to get to the other side of that optimal anxiety and push forward and really stand in something new. Again, we all have had the opportunity to look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, where are we going? Because where we've been is no longer working, and we have to adjust to something differently, whether you want to or not. And so this is a great opportunity to make some shifts. And again, oftentimes you don't want to move out of your comfort zones. You have to move out of your comfort zones. And the best place to be in is that you are willing to move out of your comfort zones, because sometimes if you have to move out of your comfort zones and you're being forced to do it, it's very uncomfortable. And unfortunately for some people, this has been very uncomfortable because they did not expect, weren't ready for, and people had jobs and they lost their jobs and they had to shift in ways that is very unfamiliar for them. And so it's been forced. For some people, it wasn't so bad. Some people continue to have their job. They just shifted into different places that they did their job. And so it has been a little bit of adjustment, but for not so bad. Others have continued to do things fairly the same, but obviously in a different format, because we all have been affected by this. So I'm going to open it up for those who are online with me. That if you have any questions, I think this is the end of my presentation format, but I'll open it up for discussion. I know I have one person with me today, and then we are live on Facebook. Changing the screen. I'm back.
No, thank you very much for the presentation. It really resonates well with me, just because I'm kind of going through, I guess, a transformation myself. For all of us that have businesses, especially service-based businesses, we can't market in person anymore. So networking events, workshops, conferences, they're no longer in existence. So we have to challenge ourselves and market ourselves online. And I'm an introvert, I'm shy. So the thought of doing live videos or doing, recordings and posting it, was traumatizing. I never thought I would be at this place where I'm at now. And that's because I'm taking myself outside of my comfort zone. So what I've been doing is each week, I'll set a goal, and each goal gets more challenging and makes me more uncomfortable when I think about it. But I know, if I want my business to thrive now, I'm going to have to come out of my comfort zone and do things that I never thought I would do. So yeah, your presentation really resonates with me today.
I'm glad. And it's very difficult. Like I was saying a couple weeks ago, for me, it was difficult because just when I had bounced back from, okay, I'm out of mommy mode to now I'm in let's go back to business mode, it was difficult. And then because now we have a pandemic, which is throwing me back into, okay, you're going to sit at home and do what? And so I had to really think outside the box and be like, okay, I can set this time for being a mom, and I can set this time for being in a relationship. I can set this time for doing something I haven't done. I can come up with certain things. I'm really good at creating events and having conversations, but the conversations are going to have to be different. And at first I was like, oh, I do not, because like you, I don't want to be on camera, so to speak. I really would rather be in person and have a one-on-one conversation and build relationships that way. And so I had just literally right before this had happened, was like, okay, I'm going to do this live brunch event which requires you to eat and be in front of a person and have conversations and mimosa. And then we have this Zoom, you know, happy hour stuff that a person is on the other side of the world and you're drinking mimosas and they're drinking whatever. And I'm like, that's not the same.
Yeah.
But it was an adjustment. And it at first was very uncomfortable and it took some weeks. And for some people, it's still months later is not comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's not something that is just going to, switch gears. Just like when we start opening up, like some states have started opening up within the last week or so. It's not just going to go back to normal. And I think people really need to be aware of that and be real with themselves to think, oh, we're just going to switch gears and go back, in time, 3 months, and life is going to, exist as it did before. It's not going to happen. And as much as I want certain parts of my life to just be what I would deem as normal, I have to find a new normal. I have to figure out the things that work best for me. And I think it's challenging as it is. There are some rewards in it, because you can't continue to operate. There's a quote I think I had written down. All right, let's see. What did he say? Oh, where is that quote? Because I liked it so much. Okay, I can't find it. But there's a guy he was just talking about, like, in your comfort zone, you are just existing. And for you to really thrive, you have to be on the other side of uncomfortable. And that means that you really have to give your all to something that you know nothing about. And that hurts sometimes at first, because it's like those new shoes that you bought. They look good, they're cute. You're like, you know what? They're gonna be the bomb when I put them on. And then you wear them the very first time and you have like the worst feeling ever because it's uncomfortable. You have blisters, and then the blisters takes a week or so to get rid of. But eventually, when you wear that leather down and it morphs to fit your foot, somebody else putting their foot in that shoe doesn't really work, because then they have to adjust to it. But you have adjusted to it, and what turned out to, or started out to be something uncomfortable becomes something that's fashionable, something that, feels good, hopefully, if it's the right shoe. And eventually you're able to walk and do your thing and show up like you want to be. But it takes time.
It does.
Same thing with life. And unfortunately, we're in this situation, and there are a lot of people who have jobs that are no longer going to exist. And so they have to be willing to say, you know what? I have to learn something different. And unfortunately, it hurts at first, but it may be the best thing for you. It may be your calling showing up to speak to you.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I think this moment is going to define a lot of people. How bad do you really want, your business to sustain itself? Or how bad do you really want to learn a new skill so that way you can get another job? So I think mindset, motivation, all of that is really coming into play right now.
Right. And I think about you, like you had to go through, losing a job, shifting gears, starting a new business, all very uncomfortable. And I'm sure with the global pandemic, very uncomfortable to be in a place where you're learning something new and then you're being forced to like turn it up 1,000 degrees to keep it moving. Because that is tough. And it, it was already tough with all the transitions that you had to go through just to get there. But, I tell people all the time, the sweet spot is on the other side of everything that you think you can't do. That's where you become all of who you need to be, is when you move through those different matrix spots and figure it out. It happens. It just has to take time. And unfortunately, we live in this like microwave society, or we used to, where, we think we're supposed to get rich quick. We're supposed to like, get on Facebook and get a gazillion followers. We're supposed to just, have this overnight success. And even those people who look like they're, or look like they have had an overnight success, no one has an overnight success. When their expertise shows up and they really start living on purpose, it seems like it has just happened. But there are many no's, there are many failures, there's many hard days, there's many losses, and all of that create the story behind their success. But I think a lot of times we take for granted that there's a process, but there is. And if we keep moving forward, then we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So. Also, I want to say thank you too, because I think support groups like this, are really helping a lot of people, because it gives us a platform to come together and just, talk about what's going on. And hey, you're not the only one that's struggling. We're all having bad days, but we can share tips and advice and motivate each other. I think that's helping a lot. It's personally helped me.
Well, I'm glad. And that's really why I wanted to start this, because it helped me to, get back out there and connect with other people. So it gives me an opportunity to stay connected. But I really wanted women to be able to share their expertise, to even just have a place for an hour to talk. Like, we don't always have to do a presentation. We can just have okay, I have been going through XYZ this week, and I really need this from someone who does that, and who can point me in the right direction, because this is not about I have to do everything by myself. And so often, especially in small businesses, you feel like I'm that, warrior out here all alone, and you're the lone wolf, and you're not. There are other people who have been through it before. Use their expertise. Get a mentorship going, a partnership, a collaboration. If I'm good at one thing and you're good at another, why try to do it separate? We can come together. Doesn't have to be forever. Maybe it is. Maybe it's the partnership waiting to happen. But there's so many resources that when you pull together and you use the expertise of someone else, that you can get so much further, and you don't have to do it alone. So hopefully that is what this is. And I have a whole nother group of expats. And next week, the conversation is going to be about the global pandemic and the expat experience, and how it has affected people who are living outside their home country. And people have had to shift. I think a lot of times we think we live in a bubble. If you haven't traveled or you haven't lived abroad, that this is only affecting us, but it's not. This is a global pandemic, and there are people in all different countries that are handling this differently. And especially if you're, born and raised in one country, and, I know a young lady who just moved to China, like right when this was about to happen. So she probably was in China for like 4 months, and then a global pandemic, and you're trying to adjust culturally to something new, and then you're on top of that, you're going through this that has to be hard. And so I wanted to just have open conversations with the people that I do know who are living abroad, so that they can give a different perspective. So that's what we'll be talking about next week.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I definitely would love to join, because I still keep in touch with some of my expat friends, and it's interesting to hear how other countries are handling this. To be quite honest with you, they're actually doing a lot better than we are. Obviously.
Yeah. So I'll try to be mindful of people's time. think I lost you.
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I can. So I know it's 1 o'clock and we started a little bit late, but I hope that the presentation helped some people, just gave a different perspective, or even just kind of helped you think about how to adjust differently. And every week, we try to do this every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Like I said, next week we're going to have a panel discussion. It's about 7 people who are in different countries. I'm trying to get at least 6 different continents. So we'll see if that works out. But we're just going to open the conversation up about the global experience, especially for, and these are all people of color, and how they're experiencing the world that they're living in abroad, away from home. And so not all of them are Americans. Some of them are expats that are from different countries. I think I have somebody in Australia, Germany, Oman, and I think Mexico. And then I think there's 2 other young ladies. One might be in the UAE and one might be in China. And so hopefully we'll have that conversation that will go strong. And I'm going to open it up for an hour and a half next week. It may go longer, it may just go to the hour. But if you are interested in learning about how everyone else is experiencing this pandemic throughout the world, please join us for Ladies in Lunch next week. Until then, I want you to be safe. I want you to be prosperous, and I want you to step out your comfort zones and do something different, even if that means going outside and taking a walk, and that's not something that you normally do. If you normally go left when you do go outside, go right and see what's on the other side of your normal. Until then, it's been wonderful. I'm Cha Jones, and I'll see you next week.